Hey, good morning, friends. It is Monday, July 27th. I'm your host, Greg Miller, and this is the latest episode of Beliefs, Ballots, and Bulldogs. So it's about that time. I guess we're gonna start getting ready for football season again. The cool air hasn't hit us yet, but there's something out there when you walk around outside. I can feel it coming. The countdown is on. The cooler Saturdays are getting closer, and if you're like me, if you're a Georgia fan or a Georgia grad in my case, or just somebody who likes to watch the dogs on Saturday, then you can feel something in the air starting to build for us. And I think as we start our Georgia themed messages for the day, and I think we're going to start with a pretty simple question today. We've obviously been on a pretty darn good run as Bulldogs for the last decade or so, and the question we want to start with rolling into this season is, are we still the standard? Not are we any good? Because yeah, I mean we're Georgia, we're going to be good. Not are we talented? Absolutely, roster wise, going to be one of the top three or four most talented teams in the nation yet again. Not even, can we win the SEC or make a playoff run? I mean, at this point, those things almost feel like a given. I absolutely expect us to contend for the SEC. I would be almost shocked at this point if we don't get a playoff invite as big as the playoff system is now. So all the goals that we'll set out for us are right there for us. But beyond the scheduling and the wins and losses, I'm talking about something a little bigger than all of that. I'm talking about, are we as the University of Georgia, is UGA still the measuring stick of college football? Are we still the program that everybody else in the nation looks at and says that's what we're trying to emulate? That's what we're trying to become? Because I mean, heck, it was, for a few years there was no real debate. We were not just winning games, we were suffocating teams. We lined up with future NFL players at every position all over the field, just punched teams in the mouth and frankly, sometimes made some really good teams look rather ordinary. It just that became the brand of Georgia football. That was the standard. And I think as we head into this 2026 season, I think we're in a little bit of an interesting spot. There's not much doubt in my mind. I know we're still elite. Kirby Smart is still Kirby Smart. The recruiting machine is still rolling. The expectations are still massive. But I feel like this year rolling into the season, there's just enough questions for teams to wonder if Georgia is still the team, not just one of the teams. Clearly, we're one of the teams, but do we still have a chance to be just a little bit better than everybody else? And honestly, I think that may be what Kirby wants this year. I think Kirby may be embracing this role because I think, a Kirby Smart led Bulldogs team is, and much like other teams and other units, they're more dangerous when people start questioning things a little bit. And one of those questions this year is going to be the offense. It put up statistically good numbers. There wasn't a whole lot to complain about, but it just felt like something was missing last year. Gunnar Stockton rolling into this season is going to be one of the huge storylines. And we know as Georgia fans, we don't need some cute offense. We don't need these video game type systems where they're just throwing the ball all over the field. We don't need to be flashy just for the sake of being flashy, but we do need to be dangerous. We need to scare people. We need an offense that at least makes the defenses a little bit nervous. We need to be able to make the safeties back up. We need to be able to make teams pay when they stack the box because they're gonna. And we need a quarterback who can keep us on schedule. We need Gunner to take care of the football, but then he's got to be able to cut it loose and hit the big throws when they're sitting there. The difference between whether we're going to be a good championship caliber team or whether we're going to be elite, it isn't going to be whether or not we can move the ball. It's going to be whether we can just break somebody's will, whether we can hit those three or four big plays a game to just crush the other team when we need some momentum, and then just break somebody's will in the fourth quarter like Kirby's always been known to do. And that's where, the second question, it's back into the trenches. This is where the brand of Georgia football that was so dominant for 6 or 7 years. This is where we were built. This is where this thing was originated. The D line, the O line, the physicality, the depth, just grown man football. This is when Georgia's at its best. When we're right, we don't finesse people. We wear them down. We lean on them. We make them tired. We make them uncomfortable. We make teams want to quit the game before the fourth quarter even starts. So if we're asking whether or not Georgia is still the standard of college football, for me, that's where it starts. Can we get back to controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball every single Saturday? Can we run the ball down somebody's throat when everybody in the stadium knows we're about to run it? Can we protect the quarterback when the game gets tight and we need to make a few plays? Can the defensive front, get some of those negative chaos plays and get back to just hunting the quarterback and making chaos plays for us? Because Georgia is at our best, Georgia is not just a talented football team. We've got talent across the board, but at our best, Georgia is almost a violent, it's legally but cleanly, but just an aggressive, disciplined, aggression-led football team. And then that brings us to the third question, and that's the mentality, that mental edge. And that's something that's obviously harder to measure. Talent is easy to measure. Recruiting rankings track that. We've got NFL prospects all over the field. That's easy to identify. Just you'll see scouts from the NFL at every Georgia practice there. But that mental edge, that's a difference. It's whether a team plays like it still has something to prove. And I think this Georgia team does. And I certainly think Kirby Smart's got them believing they do. We've all heard the noise. We know people are questioning Gunner in the offense. We know people are talking about Alabama coming back, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. Look, I'm fine with all those other teams getting some offseason love. We know some folks are wondering if Georgia's championship window has shifted because of the NIL and the transfer portal and some of the things. If maybe that championship window has shifted from a dominant dynasty to just a really good playoff contender year in and year out. And, honestly, it kind of irritates me a little bit. I feel like people are writing us off a little bit too quick. And frankly, I know it irritates Kirby Smart, and I hope it irritates every player in that locker room. The best Georgia teams under Kirby Smart have not just been the most talented, they've been the teams that are hungry and angry and focused and just physically relentless for 4 quarters every game. They played like disrespect was oxygen to them, and that's what I think we as Georgia fans all want to see again. We don't want to see a Georgia team that just rolls out and expects to win because we've got that G on the helmet, and we want to see a Georgia team that plays like it has to earn respect every single Saturday, because that's when we're at our best. We're not at our best like most people. We're not at our best when we're comfortable. We're not at our best when people are patting us on the back and telling us how good we are. We're not at our best when everybody assumes that we're already in the playoff conversation. We are at our best when Kirby can walk into that building at Butts-Mehre and say, look, they don't think you're the team anymore. That's when things get dangerous. So as we get ready to get into this season and we start doing UGA segments on the regular, the question that's the question I'm really going to be watching as I start paying attention to fall practice is, do we still have that edge? Because if we've still got that edge and that mentality's right and Kirby can get those boys locked in and fired up, then I think the rest of the college football world may need to be put on notice. Y'all may have a problem this year. The schedule lines up. We'll get the answers. The SEC grind will always tell you whether you're any good or not. There's going to be some tough road trips. There's going to be a bunch of physical games, some massive rivalry, heated games, and some of those just ugly, nasty Saturdays where you just find out, can you squeak out a win that maybe you don't deserve? So before we get into predictions and records and playoff paths and all that good stuff, I think right now we just need to start right here with the simplistic. Look, Georgia doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. We don't need to show anybody that we belong. We belong. Everybody knows that. We just need to prove that we're still the standard. And frankly, I think if the offensive line can settle in and if Gunner can take that next step that we're all hoping for, I'm excited. I think this defense is going to be nasty. If this defense can get back to hunting, then I think this may be a team that kind of resembles those Georgia teams of a few years back that just has that nastiness and that edge to them. And lo and behold, I think we may look up in November and realize that we never really left the top of the mountain. Those below us just got a little bit louder. Go Dogs. All right, guys, we're gonna ease into the real stuff today and get to today's message out of the book of Luke. This is a similar topic. This is less about what we're chasing, but more about the perspective to be grateful for it. And I kind of spent some time over the weekend thinking about this, and I want to ask yourself, like, When's the last time that you just spent, five uninterrupted minutes just thinking about or talking about everything that's going right in your life? Not things that need fixing, not the things that you're frustrated with, not what's broken in America, not what's going wrong at work, not what your spouse forgot to do, not what your kids are doing, not that backache you've been dealing with, not how bad the economy is, certainly not this political nastiness we're all dealing with, and not football or anything like that. Just some time to think about everything that's going right. And if you're like me, it's actually a little harder than it sounds. We've all become incredibly good at noticing what's wrong. I think we're all wired to be such fixers that we just look around for something to fix sometimes, and maybe that's not entirely our fault. Everywhere we're turned, we're surrounded by reasons to complain. The news only seems to highlight the negative and what's broken. Social media obviously rewards outrage and vitriol, and politics often succeeds by convincing us that the sky is falling. If they can make us afraid, then they can control us. Advertising these days is constantly whispering to you, "Hey, you'd be happier if you had this, or you really need to have this." But I wonder if the whole society around us has just created this lens to where we've become experts at spotting problems and only spotting things that need to be fixed. I wonder sometimes if maybe we've forgotten to notice or even recognize blessings at all. The messages we hear every day from the world around us, nothing's ever good enough. Your phone's not good enough. Your house isn't big enough. Your paycheck's not enough. Your vacation wasn't exciting enough. People are always disappointed. And there's always, one or another reason just to believe that happiness is just one more step away. This is what we talked about last week. And when we start believing that happiness is always one step away, we start to lose our sense of gratitude, and gratitude just disappears because you can't be grateful if you're constantly dissatisfied. It's just not possible. So we look at the chapter, the Gospel of Luke, and let's see what God has to say. God tells us, and it's one of the more fascinating stories to me. It's chapter 17. Jesus is in this passage. He's traveling between Samaria and Galilee, and he's approached by 10 men with leprosy, and they cry out to him from a distance. They say, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And Jesus tells them to go show themselves to the priest. And then as they're walking, they're just healed. So I mean, imagine in that moment, you've dealt with something for years. These people had been outcast. They were forced to live outside of their communities. They've been separated from their friends and families. They've been told that there are only certain spots where they could live, where they could walk, and they weren't allowed to touch other people. And then just in a single moment, everything changes. So let's listen to how Luke describes this passage and what Luke writes to us in verses 15 through 19. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." So 10 people received the miracle and yet only returned back to the one who performed it. It makes you, if you read the Bible as I do, and it causes you to become more self-reflective, it makes you question which, in that scenario, which one am I? If if something had haunted me, if I'd been dealing with something that long, how is that possible? But we wrestle with this because if I'm honest, there's thousands of things I've prayed for and then been blessed with. Lord, bless my family, bless my work, bless my health. Lord, please bless this decision I have to make. Bless this opportunity. Bless this nation. But then how often do we really circle back just to say thank you? But not circle back because we want to say, "Hey, thank you. Now can I have this?" But just to say thank you, just because God has been so good to us. We've discussed it from this angle, and I think one of the biggest dangers we have in our society these days. It's not political. It's not the wealth we deal with. It's not technology. It's not the sense of entitlement. Or I guess maybe it is the sense of entitlement. Maybe that's what it is. It's not all the things that we have. It's the fact that we feel like we deserve them. The moment we start believing we deserve something, we stop being grateful for it. If I think I deserve good health, then I don't thank God when I wake up healthy in the morning. If I think I deserve freedom, then I'm going to spend all my time complaining about its imperfections. If I feel like I deserve success, then I'll become angry every time something doesn't go my way. Entitlement doesn't make us happier. It makes us impossible to satisfy, because when you feel like everything is deserved, then nothing can feel like a gift. Let's try to bring this a little closer to home. Let's talk about, this particular nation we live in. We live in one of the most prosperous countries in history. And again, we've talked about it on here. I'm a patriotic guy. I absolutely love this country and feel absolutely blessed to be an American. But this doesn't mean America's perfect. It's far from perfect. We have real problems, real divisions, real challenges, and all of those challenges deserve and need honest discussion. But sometimes I wonder if we've become so focused on fixing what's wrong that we've forgotten to appreciate what's right. The fact that we have the ability to worship freely, to open a Bible without fear, to gather and spend time with our family, to pursue professional opportunities, to help our neighbors, to have free speech and speak openly about what we think. And these aren't things that every generation or every nation in the past has enjoyed. We are fortunate and blessed to enjoy these things. And gratitude doesn't mean you have to pretend like the problems don't exist. Gratitude gives the ability to it refuses to let the problems blind us to God's blessings. It just helps you shape your perspective a little bit. I mean, imagine what would happen tomorrow if before you criticize something, you focused on and were thankful for the good parts of it. Before you posted another complaint, you shared a blessing instead. Before telling everyone what America has lost, what if we remembered all of the things that America has been provided by God? That doesn't ignore reality. It just changes the posture and perspective of our hearts. The greatest gift God ever gave us isn't going to be and wasn't financial security or comfort or success. It wasn't even physical well-being. The greatest gift God gave us was Himself through Jesus Christ. The 10 lepers in this story, they received restored bodies, but one man received something even greater. He found himself back at the feet of Christ. And maybe that's the reason why he was the only one that came back. He was the one that realized the greatest miracle wasn't simply in being healed physically. It was meeting the one who was capable of doing the healing. So as we roll into this week, and who knows what this week is gonna have in store for any of us. But try to spend some time with this perspective and think about this. If someone listened to every conversation you have over the next 7 days, would they conclude that you're a grateful person or a critical one? Would they hear more complaints or would they hear more praise? More frustration or more hope? This week, so let's become the kind of people who notice God's blessings just as quickly as we notice the world's problems. Grateful people don't ignore reality. We just refuse to let the darkness keep us from seeing the light. Have a great Monday and thank God for something today. That'll do it for today, guys. As always, get in your Bible, say your prayers, love one another, and tell the truth. God bless.